If you have intentions of growing garlic for next year, now is the time to be ordering your seed garlic. Garlic needs about 6 months in the ground to get to maturity. So here in the Northern Hemisphere, we may be planting our garlic as early as mid-September in some areas. With the plethora of catalogs and websites and garden centers offering garlic to gardeners, how do you know what variety of garlic to choose? And should you be choosing hardneck or softneck or that look-alike elephant garlic? Today on Just Grow Something, we're going to figure it out. We'll talk about the differences between the types of garlic and what might make you want to choose one variety over another, whether it's to do with flavor or storage, disease resistance, or something else entirely. Let's dig in. Hey, I'm Karen. I started gardening in a small corner of my suburban backyard, and now 18 years later, I've got a degree in horticulture and operate a 40-acre market farm. I believe there is power in food and that everyone should know how to grow at least a little bit of their own. On this podcast, I share evidence-based techniques to help you plant, grow, harvest, and store all your family's favorites. Consider me your friend in the garden. So, grab your garden journal and a cup of coffee and get ready to just grow something. Quick shout out to those of you who have emailed me or messaged me about the upcoming changes Patreon is making to subscriptions from within their Apple Store app. In short, if you're not aware, Patreon is going to begin paying a 30% commission on their commission to Apple, which is required by Apple for in-app purchases in order to remain in their App Store, which means the creators are being charged for it, which means you are charged for it if you opt to support this show through a monthly commitment through the Patreon app from within the Apple App Store after November. So this does not apply if you're already subscribing. It doesn't apply if you subscribe from the Patreon website or if you subscribe from the Android App Store. But it was enough of a concern for some of you saying the reason that you've not joined the Patreon page is because you want more of the money to go toward the show, or you just wanted to do like a one-time support thing, like, hey, thanks for the great episode, here's a couple bucks. So first of all, I really, really do appreciate those of you who want to support the show monetarily, whether that's through merch or by supporting advertisers or affiliates or whatever. And I'm very mindful of the fact that not everybody wants more stuff. So I've added a little link at the bottom of the website that looks like a little to-go cup of coffee, and that allows you to buy me a coffee or 3 or 4 as a one-time thanks for the help or thanks for the content sort of support. There is also a full-blown buy me a coffee page also. It's buymeacoffee.com/justgrowsomething, and that does give you the same options as on Patreon, but on a different platform. So I will link to both of those support platforms in the show notes of this episode if you are interested. So again, thank you to those of you who are concerned about this. Shout out to Mia for becoming my most recent patron over on Patreon. Big thanks to those of you who are already supporting. And if supporting monetarily is not within your means, then the ratings, the reviews, the shares, and the views all help support this show. And I really do truly appreciate each and every one of you. So let's talk garlic. There are over 600 different varieties of garlic in the world. So if you've felt a little overwhelmed looking at the choices, you have a very good reason to feel that way. Let's talk about the differences in the types so that you can narrow your choices down a little bit. And the first thing that we would be concerned with when choosing a type would be climate suitability. So the two main different types of garlic are hardneck and softneck, right? So the most obvious difference between hardneck and softneck garlic is the way they look and the way they sort of grow. Hardneck garlic has that long flowering stem growing through the center of the bulb, and this is what we call the scape. Now, generally, we remove the scape from the bulb because we want to force energy into the bulb growth rather than allowing it to flower. These scapes are edible. We use them just like a chive or a green onion, but one that has a really strong garlicky kick. Garlic scape pesto is like one of my favorite spring treats. But if you were to leave that scape intact, it will produce a flower that is an umbel. So it's a terminal pod at the very end of that scape, and that actually produces little bulbules. So those bulbules can actually be removed from the scape when they're mature, and then they're planted in the same way as we do cloves. But the difference is that those would actually need at least 2 seasons worth of growth, usually 3, before they actually produce a differentiated bulb like what we're used to in regular garlic. Now, the other marked difference in hardneck garlic is the actual bulb itself that surrounds the scape. It is actually only, in hardneck, it's one single layer of pretty consistently shaped cloves. So the number of cloves actually depends on the variety that you're growing, the cultivar, but it tends to be between 4 and 12. Soft neck varieties, on the other hand, have a much higher number of cloves, which means they have a larger bulb. And these are the types that you usually see in the grocery store. So soft neck varieties usually produce between 10 and 20 cloves per bulb, sometimes even more than that. And if you look at them side by side with the hard neck, the soft neck are more irregular in shape. And that is because where the hardneck variety grows just one layer around the center, a soft neck actually has 2 or more concentric layers of those cloves, each individually wrapped in their own little skin. So it means that they kind of look a little bit more wonky or less uniform in shape compared to the hardneck. Now, the fact that they grow more cloves is likely a reproductive compensation, because soft necks do not usually produce a scape like the hard necks. So they're not going to flower and produce those little bulbules. So if there's less chance of them flowering, then that means they need to produce more cloves. That's just an evolutionary trait, honestly. Generally speaking, hardneck varieties tend to grow better in areas with more severe winters. So this is where we start to make our decisions based on climate suitability, right? Hardneck garlic requires a greater period of vernalization, so that prolonged period of cooler weather, than softneck varieties do. So, and then the opposite of that, softnecks tend to perform better in areas where the winters are more mild. So where I am, which is now zone 6B, I can grow both hardneck and softneck. And I usually do grow both because sometimes we have really brutal winters, and so the hardneck does way better. But then some years we have really, really mild winters, and my soft neck will totally outperform my hard neck. So I just grow both to make sure that I'm kind of getting the best of both worlds. And where I am, that's absolutely possible. If you are in zones, usually we say USDA zones 3 through 7, you are better suited for hardneck garlic, right? So that's going to be sort of your go-to. And then if you're kind of on the border there, 6 and 7, you can absolutely also grow soft neck alongside that. And just depending on how your winter goes, see which one does better. If you are in the milder climates, that's USDA zones like 8 through 11. Soft necks are going to tend to do better for you. They're better in those warmer regions. Again, if you're on the border, like if you're in zone 8, you might try a hard neck. You just might have to do sort of a forced vernalization at that point, meaning that you would want to store your hard neck garlic in the refrigerator for a little bit before you plant it, and plant it much later in the year so that it's closer to that colder time of the year. But definitely if you're zones 8 through 11, soft neck is going to be the one that you prefer. Now, there is a third garlic, and I'm doing air bunnies there, and that is elephant garlic. It is not a true garlic. It is very closely related. It's a cousin to the leek, actually. So it does produce really large bulbs, but those bulbs are definitely more mild. So it's more of an oniony flavor with a hint of garlic, rather than being, garlicky with a softer finish. So if you are somebody who prefers a less intense garlic flavor, then elephant garlic might be the one that you choose. So besides climate, why would we want to choose one type over the other. So hardneck garlic cultivars tend to have a much more complex flavor profile than the softneck ones. They're richer, they're spicier, they are just more garlicky. The hardneck garlics also tend to have larger individual clove size. So if we think about the way they grow, those hardneck cultivars just have the one concentric ring around the center of that scape, and they are all fairly uniform. There's fewer of them, but they are larger. They also have a thicker skin, which makes them easier to peel. Softneck varieties, on the other hand, tend to taste a little bit more mild, although I have had some really good softneck varieties. And they are really good just kind of drizzled with olive oil and roasted on the grill, or they're really good for like roasting in the oven. You just take the entire thing and cut the top off and throw it in the oven and dry it or roast it that way. Softneck are also really good for drying into garlic powder, and they are the most often used varieties for processed garlic products. So if you're eating something from the store, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be a softneck variety. The cloves of the softneck types are a little bit more difficult to peel because A, they've got that more irregular shape, and B, the skins around them are super, super tight and very, very thin. So they're difficult to get apart. But this gives them an advantage in storage. So we'll talk about that here in a minute. So different garlic varieties offer distinct flavors from mild and sweet to very hot and very pungent. Your hardneck varieties tend to have that more robust, often spicy flavor. The softneck varieties are usually more mild, and some of them actually have a nice sweet little aftertaste, which incidentally is what my Magic Mind shots also have. They have a nice sweet aftertaste. I mean, if you think about it, look, not only does that little green shot give me sustained energy throughout my day, but it's doing it by using all natural science-backed ingredients. But some of those ingredients usually have a very strong flavor. You're talking lion's mane and cordyceps, which are mushrooms, and chlorophyllin, very green, ashwagandha, all kinds of anti-inflammatories like turmeric, which again also has a really good, strong flavor to it. And I love all of these things and all the mix of them for my endurance sports, but also for working out on the farm. The thing is that they have added just a hint of organic agave to sweeten it up just enough that it doesn't taste like green plants and mushrooms and turmeric, which means you're not forcing yourself to take it. It's an enjoyable experience. So you're much more likely to take it alongside your morning coffee or your tea, and that makes it a really good habit to start your day with. And if I sound energized, that is because I had my Magic Mind right alongside my second cup of coffee this morning. So you can get this sort of energy that I have. You can also save yourself some serious coin on a subscription or 20% off a one-time purchase by going to magicmind.com/justgrowsomething and using code justgrowsomething20 at checkout and try it for yourself. magicmind.com/justgrowsomething with code justgrowsomething20. Now, I store my Magic Mind bottles in our drink fridge in our kitchen, and you need to know how long you want to store your garlic for, because that is the next consideration for which variety you want to choose, and that is your storage needs. So, soft neck garlic typically stores for about 6 to 12 months. So a year you can hold on to this after harvest once you have cured it, and that is because those skins are so thin, but they are so tight around the soft neck garlic cloves. Your hard neck garlic generally only stores for about 3 to 6 months. And you will know that something has gone wrong or you've been storing them for too long, because the hard neck garlic varieties, I have stored them and I have tended to sometimes store them a little bit longer than I was supposed to. And I kind of saw that they were sitting there and they looked just fine, so I just left them. When I got back to them finally, and it was probably a good 6 or 8 months later, I went to go and grab them, and I realized that they had basically just sort of disintegrated to dust within their little paper shells. So it looked like a solid head of garlic, but there was literally nothing in there. Like you squished it and it was like, poof, nothing was there. I have not had that problem with the soft neck garlic. The other thing too is that soft neck garlic is the one that you can braid. So hardneck doesn't, because it has that hard scape in there, first of all, it doesn't tend to braid as easily, even if you're cutting that scape completely off. And the soft neck does this beautifully. And so this is one way that you can store them. You can actually just weave a braid together and hang them up and let them store, and then just clip them to use them periodically. But if you're looking to, dehydrate garlic and turn it into a powder, or if you want to just dice it up, one of the things that I will technically do is if I will dice it up in my food processor, and then I will add it to a jar, a mason jar, and then cover it with olive oil and stick it in the back of my fridge. And that way, anytime I need basically 1 clove of garlic, I just take a half a teaspoon of that mixture and toss it into whatever it is that I'm using. You can dehydrate them and you can grind them and all that kinds of thing. At that point, which one you choose is entirely up to you. Like I said, the soft neck is a little bit milder. And if you're used to like store-bought garlic powder, the soft neck is what you're probably going to use. The hard neck is more pungent, and that comes through definitely when you are processing it. So if you want that stronger kick and you want the kind of higher oil content, then go for the hard neck garlic. Or again, if it's possible in your area, do both, and then you can decide from there. And then another reason that you might choose one variety or another would be for disease resistance. So if you have had problems in the past with anything in your garden that is concerned with white rot or fusarium wilt or any kind of like root rot nematodes, there are garlic varieties that have been bred to be resistant to those types of things that are common in garlic. So check with your local extension service for recommendations on disease-resistant varieties that are going to be suitable to your region. You can also check with your extension service to see if there are just varieties in general that they recommend for your area. I know when I first started growing, I went to the University of Missouri website, the Extension Service website, and the growing guide there listed very specific varieties that did well in this area. Now, I've checked on that thing again, that planting guide here recently, and they haven't changed it. So it's still those kind of older varieties. It doesn't seem like they have updated it with any of the newer kind of hybrids that have come out. So you might be, in better luck than I am, depending on where you're gardening. But always check with your extension service, because they do continually sort of put out that information, and that will help you to figure out what does really well in your area. The other thing too, don't forget, is to opt for varieties that are readily available in your region, because they are likely to be better adapted to your local conditions. So check with the local farmers markets. If you have people at the farmers market who grow garlic to sell, find out whether or not they're selling seed garlic, which means that they have cured it and it's ready to be put into storage, or it's ready to be planted in the fall. And you will be able to plant from those. Now, the only caveat to that is, if it's not certified seed garlic, you are not guaranteed that it is free of any type of a disease. So get to know your grower is all I'm saying, and make sure that you understand what their growing practices are, and you can get the straight scoop from them as to whether or not they have seen any diseases in their garlic crop before you rely on them to get your seed garlic. We have grown it in the past and just sold it as regular garlic, edible garlic. But I have known customers who have purchased them from us specifically to plant. And since we've never had any diseases in our garlic, we've never had a problem with that. We have also purchased seed garlic from other local growers when we haven't had a great crop, or I want to try a new variety, and I haven't had any problems either. But that's not a guarantee, so just make sure you know who you are growing from. Or look for seed companies that specialize in bioregionally adapted seeds for your area. For us, that's the Buffalo Seed Company over on the Kansas side. They have done a great job of growing varieties that came from a climate that was very similar to ours, and they have grown them for several years over and over again and collected the seeds from the best and continued to plant those. And so everything that I have gotten from them has done really, really well, and they do carry garlic, so again this year. The final thing to think about, too, is your planting and harvesting time. Remember that hardneck garlic needs a longer growing period because it requires that cold exposure. You have to have that vernalization in order for them to form those differentiated bulbs. Now, typically garlic is planted in the fall and harvested the following summer. The softneck varieties don't tend to need as long, and they do not need that period of vernalization. So if you're getting going late, and maybe you're not hearing this episode until the spring, or you hadn't really planned on garlic and you haven't gotten any, you can sometimes plant the softneck varieties in spring in the milder climates and be able to get a crop out of them. Your bulbs won't be quite as big, but that's okay. You're still getting garlic, right? But fall planting is generally recommended. The softneck varieties just don't tend to take as long to get to maturity. So, your planting and your harvesting time would be one final consideration as to which garlic variety you choose. So, what are some go-to garlic varieties? I said there are over 600 of them, but there are definitely some favorites or some ones that are more popular or more available than others, especially if you were just getting started in growing garlic. In terms of hardneck garlic, Chestnut Red, this is a purple stripe variety of hardneck. It is actually originated from the southern region of the country of Georgia. It's got very rich, sweet tones when they are roasted or sauteed. Mild heat, but a nice garlicky flavor. Another one is German Extra Hardy. This one is a really good, cold, hardy, hardneck porcelain variety. Fairly large heads for hardneck garlic, usually 5 to 8 cloves that are really good sized. A little bit of a hint of purple to the coloring, sort of a very classic garlic flavor. And then Music is another very popular selection that has come around here in the last, 5 or 10 years. It actually was derived from the German Extra Hardy. It has much larger cloves, like nice big jumbo cloves, really good long storage potential, and also very, very good for really cold climates. So the skins are thick, they are tightly wrapped. They do fantastically well if you are gardening in a really, really cold climate. In terms of softneck, Inchelium Red, that's kind of the gold standard, I guess. It's a very strong producer. Mild to medium pungency, right? But really good flavor. That one was actually a national softneck garlic taste test winner, and has really good storage potential, like 8 months to a year. So that probably would be the top choice. And then you've also got Sicilian, which kind of has a wide flavor range. It's really rich and musky, sometimes downright spicy. So if you like a really good garlic kick, but you need to grow a softneck variety, then Sicilian might be your choice. There are so many varieties of garlic because there are also subtypes of garlic. So it's not just hardneck and softneck. The hardneck and softneck are then broken down into artichoke type, Creole, silver skin, rocambole, porcelain, purple stripe. They all have different characteristics and different flavors and different storage life. So I absolutely encourage you to try multiple varieties and just try to understand what it is that you are buying. If you can look online for descriptions of the varieties that you're considering to see if they're a hardneck or a softneck, what their storage life is, what their flavor profile is, etc., before you make a purchase, you'll have a better idea of what to expect when you harvest. And then, of course, just like anything else, the flavor profile and the way it grows is also going to depend on your soil composition and what's going on in your individual garden. Just be sure, especially if you are planting multiple varieties at once, that you label your crop really, really well. I have a variety of garlic that I have been planting over and over again for several years, but I cannot tell you anything about it because my garlics got all mixed up one year in the field, and I have just been saving the biggest bulbs to replant every season. I know it's a hardneck variety and it's a purple stripe type, but that's all I can tell you other than it's got a good flavor and it produces well for me. So, needless to say, I am now really good about labeling my garlic. Until next time, my garlic friends. My garlic friends? Absolutely, you are my garlic friends. You are also my gardening friends. So keep on cultivating that dream garden, and we'll talk again soon. For more information about today's topic and to find all the ways you can get in touch with me or support the show, go to justgrowsomethingpodcast.com. Until next time, my gardening friends, keep learning and keep growing.